Welcome to class 8 biology children. Today we are going to start chapter 7 different ecosystems. Chapter 7 different ecosystems we are going to start. Okay, let us see. In habitat chapter class 6 you have studied many things related to habitat. Okay, in class 6 we have habitat chapter. So in that chapter you had so many things which are related to habitat. What do you know about habitat? Habitat means a place where it prefers by an organisms to live is called habitat. Okay, in class 6th we have studied about different types of habitats also. Okay, let us see the conversation between Gayatri and Venkatesh. Both they conversing about ecosystems, about ecosystem. Let us see Gayatri what she is saying. First we will observe Venkatesh dialogue. See, pond and forest are habitats. What he is saying, pond and forest are habitats. Gayatri, what she is saying, but my uncle said that they are ecosystems. What Venkatesh saying, pond and forest are habitats. But Gayatri is saying, my uncle said that they are ecosystems. So there is a clash between both the opinions. Whose opinion is correct we are going to observe. Let us see. This type of doubt may arise in your mind as well. Let us try to understand how the term ecosystem came into existence and in what way ecosystem is different from a habitat. So these doubts we are also getting in our day-to-day life. So here we are going to study about ecosystem and habitat. Let us see. Ecosystem. The word ecosystem was first used in the year 1935 by A.G. Tansley. Name the scientist who gave the term ecosystem. A.G. Tansley. In which year? 1935. He was a botanist, British botanist and ecologist. Next, Tansley coined that the word reduction of the term ecological system to ecosystem. He reduced a term ecological system, named one term, into ecosystem. Okay. So according to him, nature works as a system in which organisms and their communities are profoundly influenced by many non-living environmental factors and vice versa. So in our surroundings we can see so many millions of plants and animals. They will interact with other living organisms and other non-living organisms. Okay, let us see another important point in the same page number 103. Tansley was the first person to look at all these as functional systems. Thus, all interrelationships are studied as part of the ecological system. Tansley was the first person. Before the scientist Tansley, no one studied about ecosystem. So he gave information about ecological system. Let us see, do you know, in ecosystem we study about the changes occurring in the habitat, like organisms moving away from the habitat or entering the habitat. In an ecosystem what we are going to observe, the changes occurring in the habitat. So in habitat we can see some changes, like some animals or some birds will come into the habitat or they will leave the habitat. So that type of changes we can see in an ecosystem. Let us see. Venkatesh and Gayatri both are correct in their own way. Already we observed conversation between Venkatesh and Gayatri. Okay, so both are correct in their own way. The habitat that the Venkatesh talks about is a part of the larger ecosystem. What he is saying about habitat. Habitat indicates that a larger part of ecosystem, but ecosystem indicates a smaller part. Let us see, we have an lab activity structure of the ecosystem. So in order to observe the structure of ecosystem, some materials are required and procedure is also there. We are going to discuss. From the discussion related to Venkatesh and Gayatri doubt, we can conclude that there are several ecosystems around us. So basing on Venkatesh and Gayatri conversations, we can observe different types of ecosystems are there in and around us. A field, a pond, or your school garden, all are the examples of ecosystem. According to the basing on their conversation, a field or a pond or your school garden, these all are the examples of ecosystem. Let us see aim. Here what is our aim? Study an ecosystem at your school or home or garden to understand its structure. For this you will require the following material. So we need to observe the ecosystem in our garden or in our school. So for this reason we need to take some materials. What the materials? Let us see. Materials required: measuring tape, string, small sticks, hand lens, hand towel. These are the materials required for this process. One more time I am going to repeat: measuring tape, string, small sticks, hand lens, hand towel. So these are the materials required for this process. Let us see the procedure. To know about the structure of the ecosystem, we have to follow the following procedure. Let us see the first step 1. Use a tape to measure a square area that is 1 meter long and 1 meter wide. It can be on grass or bare dirt or sidewalk. So by using measuring tape we need to measure an area. It should be 1 meter long and 1 meter wide. Okay. Next, let us see the second point. Mark the edges of the square with the help of string or chalk as shown in the figure. For example, if you measured an area like this manner in the form of square shape, so you should mark the edges with the help of chalk piece like this. Okay, next observe the study area. Look for the plants and animals that lives there. Use the hand lens. So all of you observe this figure. In this figure, in the form of square area, the person marked the ecosystem. So in this ecosystem area we need to observe what are the living things and what are the non-living things are there in this area. Okay, record all the living organisms you see in this area. You can even dig to go deeper to find out the living organisms that may be present in there. So if you want to know about some organisms present inside of the soil, you may go to dig the soil also. Okay, let us see. Here in these columns, in this space, you need to write your observations. What type of plants you observed, what type of living things, what type of non-living things you observed. So you should fill these all the points. Now basing on the above lab activity, we have to discuss some points. What living things did you find in your study area? Try to count them if possible. So what living things are there in your studying area? You need to count them if it is possible. Okay. Next, which kind of living things was most common in your study area? So which kind of living things are there in your study area. You need to write. Next, how was your study area or different from those of other study student groups? So if your friends they are also studying like yourselves, so you need to observe the differences between your ecosystem and their ecosystem. Next, other than the living organisms, what other things can you record from your study area? So not only living things are there in an ecosystem, some non-living things also we can see. So what are the non-living things are there in your considering ecosystem? You should list out them. Next, from the above activity, we see that an ecosystem is made up of group of living things and their environments. So, basing on the above activity, what we are going to conclude, an ecosystem, it contains so many living things and also non-living things. The living things like plants, animals, and microorganisms are known as biotic components. What do you know about biotic components? The components which have life are called biotic components. Plants, animals, and microorganisms, these all are biotic components. Okay, these all are the biotic components of the ecosystem, whereas other like soil, water, sunlight, etc., these are called abiotic components of the ecosystem. Abiotic means non-living factors. These are what they are: soil, water, sunlight. These all are non-living factors. So these all are considered as abiotic components of the ecosystem. All these organisms live together and interact with one another in many ways. So these all the living things, these all the biotic components and abiotic components, they will interact with one another in many ways. Okay children, today's class is completed. In our remaining class we are going to continue chapter 7. Thank you children.